We did want to take a chance to kind of talk through what Matahari's purpose is and why we're here and why we're doing all the things that we do and why we've done all the things that we have, just to get grounded about where we're headed, or where we've been before we talk about where we're headed. So I'm going to share my screen now. Hopefully you can see this presentation right now. Are folks able to see that? Give me a thumbs up if yes. Cool, great, perfect. So before we kind of dive into everything, I wanted to begin with a brainstorm. I'm really curious what people would say to this question. It was asked of me a couple of months ago, and it really helped me think a lot about where Matahari should go. What would you do if 1,000 people showed up tomorrow to be a member of Matahari? Say, you know, we did an event, say it was Nanny Training Day, 1,000 people came, they all want to sign up to be members, they're excited, we have their names and phone numbers. What would you do? What would be like the first thing that you would want to do with that group of people? Feel free to unmute or put it in the chat.
Sa met pale?
Go ahead, Marie.
Premier bagay.
The first thing that I think we would do, we'd like to speak with them after registering them to know where they live, and then to be able to divide them by region where they live so that we can then find the best people to work with them and to be able to you know, mentor them, guide them, and then see how we can best move forward as a unit.
Okay, yes, love that, Marie. I feel like I'm hearing you saying that we need to get to know them first, a little bit about who they are, what they do, where they live. It sounds like you're saying you need somebody to give them a call and have a one-on-one, right? What I really liked about what you said also that,
Mettez en confiance.
And then also show them that we're giving them that confidence in knowing that they're able to better understand the goals of Matahari, and then take the time to explain to them as well who we are as a group.
Yes, absolutely. And like what it means to be a member. That makes sense. I also liked what you said about wanting to identify people in their community that could reach out to them, because you don't want to just call and say, great to get to know you. You want to kind of connect people to like other members in the community that would be supportive to them. That's really thoughtful.
Merci.
Any
Thank
other
you.
ideas? Anyone want to add to what Marie just said? Malika, I see your chat. Tell them about Matahari, get to know about their interests and ideas, and sign them up. Yes, 100%. We got to get their names, phone numbers, and get them to sign up for membership for sure. Any other ideas?
We can also have like right away and not just let time go by and never hear from us again.
Yeah, 100%. That's really thoughtful. You never want to just get somebody in the door and be like, great, thanks for coming, right? You want to do other things with them, make sure that they know that we're active, we're doing things. what people would say, like once a member has come in, they've signed up for membership, maybe they've gone to 2 or 3 events at Matahari, you know, and they're excited, people really like them, they're in the community now. Then what happens? What do we do with them?
Encourage them to be part of the team by informing them of not only what we do, but also being part of meetings and whatever Matahari is doing, so that they become active members. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great, Juliet. I feel like what you're saying is that eventually they need to take on roles, right? They know you can't just be somebody who participates just by showing up to events. Ideally, people would take on roles and start helping out and become, you know, a more active member of the team, as opposed to just a passive participant. That's really great. Thank you, Juliet. Any other thoughts there? I see Olga in the chat, but I'm not sure if somebody, an interpreter,
Yes.
staff member could interpret for me.
Yes, Olga said when we finish our initial meetings and providing kind of an orientation for them, it's important that we also take the time to really hear them and see what they can bring to the table for Matahari. And knowing that we also can benefit and value from them as well.
Absolutely. What can you contribute? What are the things you're excited to do here? Are really great questions for any new member. I think both Olga and Juliet are saying eventually we want members to be leaders, right? It's not enough to just have 1,000 people coming through the door just to come to events. We want people to help co-design and lead this organization. I think that's really thoughtful. Any final thoughts before we move on? Anyone want to jump in? Great. Yeah, just to recap what I heard, I feel like folks are saying if 1,000 members want to join tomorrow, right? 1,000 new people, domestic workers, restaurant workers, women workers of all stripes, come to the door tomorrow. First things first, we got to get them to talk with somebody on the phone or in person, do a one-on-one. We got to get to know them. Second, we got to make sure they're signed up for a membership. Really excellent. Part of what we want to know is who to connect you to in Matahari. Who is your community here? Obviously, everyone's your community here, but who are the people that you're going to call to figure out what's going on at Matahari? And also, what are your skills and what do you want to do here? And start moving people towards being an active member, and then maybe a new leader, and then maybe one day, you know, a steady leader. I think Olga is saying more things in the chat. I'm not sure if an interpreter could jump in for me.
Yes. And if we know what they need, that also can help us to orient ourselves and be a call to action for us as well. In the way that we normally do it as well, sometimes we can be able to orient them better. If we initially don't know what to do with that strength, it helps us to try to think outside the box.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to be agile and really hear where people are at and then start to grow ourselves to include them. All of that is really thoughtful. Thank you for that. Part of the challenge that we're facing right now at Matahari is that we're really good at doing this for like 1 or 2 people. So we can take 1 or 2 people like to come in as a new member. We can ask them to join a meeting. We can ask them to join several meetings. We'll get them to take on a role. We'll invite them to leadership when we begin to build a stronger, deeper relationship with them. And then they'll start coming to leaders meetings. And that is great. At Matahari, we would struggle if 1,000 people showed up tomorrow. We would be pretty good at capturing maybe like 5 to 10 of them and really integrating them into the organization. But 1,000 would be a reach. So our proposal today and our discussion today is really about, what would we do if 1,000 people showed up, and how can we make that a reality for Matahari? How can we get bigger, stronger, have deeper relationships, and do more of our work? So I'm going to take us to the next slide, which is Matahari's mission. We recently posted about this on Instagram, and it was a really beautiful post. If you aren't following us on Instagram, definitely do that. This is our fundamental mission, right? We are a grassroots organization that is working to end the exploitation of women and femme workers through organizing domestic and restaurant workers for power. So this is really a difficult mission. It's a powerful one, it's meaningful, but it's a difficult one. It means that we are trying to end labor exploitation in these industries that are kind of rely deeply on women and femme workers working for free or working for very low wages. We're hoping to end that exploitation. And part of our thing is that we're convinced that we need women workers to lead to do that. We can't just be 5 organizers and talking to legislators. We need the workers themselves to be part of that mission. Seeing somebody in the chat. Oh, thank you, Lau. Appreciate that. So in thinking about this mission, I think there are 3 pillars that immediately come to mind. 3 things that are key to Matahari and our identity and how we do our work. The first thing, I think I've heard many people in Matahari say this, but I just want to reiterate that organizers are not enough and members are actually not enough. The key to accomplishing our mission, our leaders, are you. The people who have the most understanding of being both a member of Matahari, a women worker in the world, and how to fight for justice at work. This group of people is unique and special in that way. The goal is to really get folks to be leaders, not just members. The difficult thing about this is that even if we hired 100 organizers tomorrow, we actually probably would not be able to accomplish our mission. We would need women workers organized and leading in order to accomplish our mission. Organizers would not be enough. Even if 1,000 members showed up tomorrow, we would still not be able to accomplish our mission because members are people who are developing their leadership still. They're working on it. They're on the pathway. But the goal is to get them to really be leaders one day so that we have powerful, organized, vocal advocates for women workers. Does that make sense? Thumbs up if you're with me. Great, awesome. The second pillar, these thoughts are very basic actually, so I hope it's valuable for people to hear. But the second pillar of Matahari is that given the right tools and support, anyone can lead the fight for dignity at work. Our kind of fundamental mission insists that anyone can be a leader, actually. What we know from organizing and having organized for many years is that not everyone will lead. Everyone can, but not everyone will. Leadership is not about natural talent. That's what we've kind of figured out over, hundreds of years of organizing, is that leadership is not about being a born leader, actually. It's more about having the willpower to take on opportunities in the world to fight for your people and having the resources to fight for your people. So an organizer's job in Matahari is to create the resources to support you all and to identify the opportunities that we could take to fight for our rights and fight for dignity at work. But a leader's job is actually to find and support those with the willpower to do that and give them the resources. Your job is to act, to take the resources, to take the opportunity and do the thing, if that makes sense. Are you still with me? Thumbs up if you are. Amazing, great. And this is the last pillar. There are actually many women workers out there that would join us if we are smart and thoughtful about engaging them. Our job is to reach those people and create a pathway for them to be members and then be leaders. The goal is more powerful people equals more power, more ability to do what we need to do. Again, those are really basic pillars. I'm sure many of you who've been here for years and years at Matahari are like, yes, I feel this deeply. But I wanted to be very clear that that's what we mean when we're saying we're engaging members. We're making leadership happen at Matahari. So I'll pause there for a second and see if there are any questions. Any questions or thoughts before I move on?
Just want to say that when I first joined Matahari, this is my slogan. There's unity in strength and strength in numbers. So the more leaders we have, the more power we have. Thank you.
Definitely. Great thought, Angela. Great. So this is what happens. Even if we're really excited to get 1,000 members in the door and get them to be leaders, over several years of developing their leadership, every organization that's like our organization faces the same problem, which is that when you grow exponentially, when you have massive growth all of a sudden, people actually start to feel less connected to the organization and are less involved over time. So more people always means less involvement if you don't have the right structures and the right support in place. At Matahari currently, we're still building those structures. So even if we were to get 1,000 members tomorrow, we would not be able to support them all to feel involved in Matahari, and we might not be able to get them all to be leaders or get a good portion of them to be leaders, if that makes sense. And this isn't just a Matahari problem. This is like an every organization that does what we do problem. So every organization that does what we do has thought about what structures we could put into place that would make that would challenge this problem, right? What would it be like to get a lot of people and have them all feel involved? So one thing that organizers always say is that there are two models for how to structure your organization. One is called the single leader model, which we've had at Matahari for a long time. It kind of looks like this. There's a single person at the center, and they are holding a lot of relationships. They know all the leaders. They know all the members at Matahari. They know everyone who's new to Matahari. They kind of know what's going on at all times. But the people they're connected to are often less equipped to talk about Matahari, less equipped to support other people. They kind of always direct you back to the one person. When Julia was working here, this was something she talked about a lot, that she often felt like she was the one person who everyone went to. And I'm sure all of you remember that. And I'm sure many of you who have been really involved in your time at Matahari remember a time when you were the one person that everyone went to. And you were the person getting hundreds of calls all the time. And it was actually very difficult to handle. So I want to pause here for a moment and ask, what is the problem with this model? what happens when one person has all the information and all the relationships? What goes wrong?
Well, obviously when that person leaves, then things kind of fall apart and it's left, people have to pick up the pieces again, start again.
Yep, exactly. And we've seen that many times at Matahari, right? When someone leaves, and usually this person at the center will eventually have to leave because they'll burn out, right? It's too much work for one person to support all these people. So it's hard on them and it's hard on the organization. Any other ideas of what goes wrong when this happens?
Malika has put in the chat that less communication and less things get done.
Yeah, that's super smart, Malika. That's 100% what happens. Usually it kind of depends on how well that person at the center is doing. That person at the center is having good days and they're well rested and they've eaten right, you're good. But if they're having a bad day, the information starts to get a little sloppy. If they're tired for several weeks in a row, the information might get cut or not be as consistent. And then everyone who relies on that information is going to be able to do less. So it's really smart. Any other observations?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that also, if it's one person that feels like they're, taking on so much responsibility, what would happen if they leave is that maybe the individuals who joined the organization specifically to interact with them or they depend on them, those individuals would not want to stay in the organization. So we would lose people. So it would impact, the organization.
100%. It looks like Angela is resonating with you. Angela, has this happened before?
Yes, that's a brilliant point, Marie. Brilliant, brilliant point. Yes, we've seen that. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
For sure. Yeah. I've definitely had calls with people who I'm like, let's renew your membership. Let's get you back into Matahari. And it's sort of difficult because they feel like the person they had a relationship with has left. So they're uncomfortable, they don't really know how to integrate without that. Any other thoughts here? Yeah, that was Minerva. Sorry, Minerva.
Start. You both sound alike.
No problem.
Great. Well, I think that this is the model that's been happening for a long time at Matahari, at least for the time that I've worked here. But we have tried other models, and there is another alternative, right? Which is called the teams model. If you can see the slide, you'll notice that there's a person at the center, yes, but they're in relationship to a small group of people. They're working with leaders who are working with other leaders, who are working with members, and the members are working with people in their community. There's sort of a more what we call like distributed sense of relationships here. And there's also more accountability across these groups of people. And you'll notice that each person has kind of a different title, right? There's an organizer at the center, but there's leaders, there's community coordinators, they're community members. The nice thing about the teams model is that it asks everyone to take on a role. Maybe not a huge role, maybe not like full-time working 40 hours a week kind of role, but it's a role that's important and critical to the model. So it shares responsibility as well as relationships. What are some of like the pros of doing it this way? Pros or cons?
One of the pros I see is there is even distribution of roles, and there is delegation, which prevents burnout. and they get to reach a lot more people compared to the model before, the old model.
Yes, really smart, Juliet. You'll notice that there are just simply more people in this model, 100%. There's just more people because it's actually much easier to support 1,000 members or however much we get to in this type of model. And definitely resonating with you around having the delegation be a big piece of preventing burnout. Any other thoughts, pros or cons to having this model? Marie, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. This model is the co-op model. This is the co-op model because everybody has their hands in it. Everybody's contributing. Everybody feels like they're part of it. It's the same model that a lot of other businesses have used this. Supermarkets have used this model because I used to work for one. It doesn't exist anymore, but I recognize this model. That's the pro of this model. The co-op model makes you feel like you are part of the organization. The con, I mean, the only con I can see is that it is a lot of people. You have to work harder. It's not a con. You have to work harder to make sure that you kind of see that everybody is contributing. Maybe you have to recognize it or look for it or always make sure that everyone is contributing. But this is the model that is recognized across the board because it's a community model, and community makes everyone feels more at home.
Definitely. Yeah. That's super astute. I love that you compared it to cooperatives. That's exactly where we got this from. So really smart observation there. It's 100% a community model. It's exactly what Marie was saying. It allows for people to really like co-own what's happening at Matahari instead of just being a voiceless participant. It's the difference between being invited to a concert and just standing in the crowd and being like, woo, yeah, fun times, and then going home and doing nothing else. And going to a meeting where you are part of a team, you have a role, people expect you to show up and do the thing that you said you were going to do. You know, when you show up, they're like, hey, Marie, it's so good to see you. Do you have that thing I asked for? And then the ball just kind of gets rolling, right? Totally different vibe. Any other thoughts on the pros or cons of this model?
Oui.
Oh, go ahead, Marie.
Moi, c'est Marie. C'est un modèle qui est important en pile et qui très, très bon, qui fait en pile.
So I think this is really important and it's really essential. And if we apply this kind of thought in everything, it gives us a good path to follow. And it also makes everyone feel like they're a real participant that's really active in the organization, and everyone that is able to be a part of the process into really building the team really feels like they are connected to the mission and the goal that is being set.
Absolutely. That's exactly what we want, right? We want people who are members of Matahari to feel connected to us and feel like they can own a piece of what's happening here. Amazing. So yes, all this to say.
Exactement. You're engaged.
Exactly, they're engaged.
Definitely. So just to recap, this is the single leader organizer model. It's also called the dot model in some circles. There's a dot at the center. The pros of it is that it's fast, you know, and it's theoretically kind of easy in the sense that there's one person at the middle, everybody knows to go to them. The cons of it is that it's very easy to lose that person to burnout. And when you lose that person to burnout, the relationships are lost, the power that you've built is lost, the progress that you've made is lost. and people have a harder time feeling connected to the organization. And then this is the second model, the teams model, or as Marie called it, the co-op model, which I'm going to use from now on. This is the co-op model. You can see it's bigger. There's more people involved. Yes. There's a lot more roles that are required to make it happen. Everyone has a job in this model, but also everyone can contribute and really go from being a member to being a leader here. You have that feeling of community, and less feeling like you're just a face in the crowd. And you know who to ask for help. And there's probably going to be several people that you could ask for help. The con of this, as Marie brought up, is that it is harder to coordinate. When you have this many people doing this much stuff, it is harder to coordinate, and it depends on the people in the center being very aligned. You'll see the organizer in the center, the leaders, the community coordinators. You have to do a lot of internal work to align these people to get us on the right path. So our proposal today is that at the moment we are between models, right? We're kind of in limbo. We're waiting to see what this group of people is excited and interested to do, and whether a proposal that we bring to you to switch to a new teams model, a new co-op model, would be the right proposal for Matahari. And I want to remind folks that this is a huge transformation. It's not a new transformation. Matahari has done this before, and Angela is going to talk about that afterwards. But it is a big transformation, right? It will require more work from all of us. It will require all of us to tap into all the reasons we love Matahari and all the skills and energy we have, and really put that forward to take us into the next era. In our imagination, we're going from this model on the left with a single person that everyone's kind of rotated towards, to the one in the middle, where we have more people who are kind of looking outwards to see who else is out there that can be helpful. And then hopefully one day to the one on the right, where there's lots of people who are all kind of supporting members, supporting people who are potential members, and bringing them closer and closer in the organization. So I will pause there for questions. I know that we haven't really given you a proposal yet. That is coming. But I just want to see where folks are at, if you have any questions. And then, we'll take you to the next part.
Mwen pa gen yon kesyon, se yon bagay ma pa ajoute ke mwen senti nan model sa tou. Gen yon bagay nou sot di matin, Angela te pale de tout moun ka pale, tout moun ka di yon bagay. Se yon model ka mette tout
I think that
moun.
this model is really the best model for us, because it will really empower everyone to feel that every time that you speak and contribute, that it has value and that people are giving value for it, no matter what you're doing. And it's great because it really invites a collaborative conversation. If you look at the hand, right, and it has 5 fingers, every finger on your hand has its own function. And that's the same thing that we're trying to do in this model, is to create this one hand that together functions as a whole, but with it, each individual finger is instrumental into making it function at its full capacity.
Yeah, I love that, Marie. That's such a good point. There are a lot of parallels in nature.
And this applies for all of us, not just with new members, but all of us.
Absolutely, yeah. I love that metaphor of the hand. Go ahead, Marie LaPlante.
The only question I have is, how do the leaders fit into this model? How do you foresee the leaders will fit into this model as to how they fit into the previous model?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We are going to get into that. We have, a bit of like a timeline of models, teams over the years that we're going to show you, and then a presentation for where we could go. But great question. Thank you for that. I think I saw some hands, but then they went away. Any other questions? Okay, fantastic. I'm going to take us to the next thing. I'm interested in kind of hearing from all of you, just as a reflection, what was a team that you loved being a part of and why? It can be a Matahari team, it can be a work team, extracurricular team, a church team. What was a team where you were like, I feel like I really belong and I feel like I'm contributing and this feels good? I'll leave it open if anyone has thoughts.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Malika, go for it.
Hi. Yes, so the team that I would say Healing Justice team. I'm a part of that team, and I love being a part of that team because I get to express my feelings, my thoughts. I'm not judged when I'm there, and the leaders there, or the members there, or team leaders, I should say, are really supportive. They're there, whenever you feel like talking, or whatever you're going through, you can always call on any one of the team members, and they're there to listen to your problems, and try to lend a helping hand. So Healing Justice, that's my team, and I love you guys. I love Matahari and Hope. I love Healing Justice team. Thank you.
That's really sweet, Malika. I'm so glad to hear that. I think Juliana is glowing quietly over there. And a lot of the Healing Justice.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Any other teams, Matahari or otherwise, that folks are thinking of when they're thinking of good teams?
Yeah, I can jump in. I know that when I was in high school, I was a part of a youth program all throughout high school that I basically did up until I went to college. And it was a group that I was connected to either through monthly spaces and also retreat spaces. So there was like constant connection. But I also felt connected to the space because I had a very specific role. It was a leadership program. So like I, as a youth, was also, like learning, like diving deep into not just exploring my own leadership, but what community leadership also looked like. And during the summer, it turned into a summer program where I then sort of like went through the pipeline of leadership within the organization and became a counselor, and then sort of like took on a like bigger leadership role within the org.
Okay, amazing. It sounds like you had like a whole experience start to finish from there, where you started off as like not knowing that much, and then you kind of got training and support until you were a counselor level.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Ruth, I saw that you were going to say something. Do you want to jump in here?
Yes. Yeah. So I have to second what Malika said. I find that Healing Justice space that we have very safe, like a safe space within Matahari, and we're always welcoming new members if anybody wants to join. So yeah, and the thing about it is that it has been consistent. We have been going on for like, I don't know, some time now, and our dates are pretty set, and everybody knows that that's the time that we meet, and yeah, it feels like a good space to be in. But I also have to say that when I first joined Matahari, I don't know, I just felt like I was being invited into this vibrant community. And I remember like the first few months, like we even went to like Washington, DC, and there was this big event going on there. And then when we came back, there was like a whole bunch of stuff happening. So and then I was invited to join like the leaders group, which met once a month, and that was consistent too. So I used to like being part of that leaders monthly meeting. We used to meet, I think, on Milk Street in downtown. So it was, I don't know, I just felt like I was being part of something bigger, and that we were creating some change and positive change. So yeah, that was a time when I felt like I was really joining a community where I could belong.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you for that. It sounds like for you, a big part of having a good team was being able to have some positive impact on the world and having a place where you're safe and seen and heard with the people that you're with. That's great. I'm so glad we could do that. I see Olga's hand, so I'm gonna have her go, and then we'll go to Angela and then Juliet. Olga, you there? Alrighty. I'm gonna move to Angela then. Olga, let me know if you wanna pop in.
Okay, similar to Ruth and I'm Angela. Similar to Ruth and Malika, the teams that, especially the Jamaica playing team, how they're feeling, I feel the same way, because the JP team which started out probably in 2014 and lasted up until last year, the year before, and it felt like family. And we worked so hard in that team to create a lot of campaigns. Some made history, some the surveillance, and just fighting for the time and a half for domestic workers. We made history in JP, the JP team, and persons were dedicated. Persons came on time once a month. They would call up their other team members. Are you coming today? Let's do this. Some persons will bring food, and we shared and we brainstormed and we created a lot of change. So it was a team that I really loved and wanted to continue to be a part of. Yeah. Thank you.
Totally. Wow, lots of Matahari teams. I'm so glad that people have had their team experiences here. Jules, why don't you go next?
So hi team. When I was in high school, I was part of Youth Alive. And that was because in my country where I come from, Uganda, a lot of youth were getting infected with HIV. So they had to find alternative ways by using the youth to sensitize people. And so I joined the group from the church, and we really had an impact on youth by encouraging people not to engage in sex and anything that could cause them into getting infected or using drugs or things like that. And I realized it was a good way to learn, because growing up, I was a shy kid. So it helped me to be able to stand up and talk among people. And not only that, we got qualified as counselors. And also the other thing, I'm in the process of becoming a better leader, if I may say, because after that, I didn't join any group since I came to the US until Matahari. So I was kind of drawn back, and I realized that when I joined Matahari, Lydia was like, Julie, you really need to know your rights. You don't know your rights. So I joined Matahari basically to know my rights. And then I realized, oh, this is good for my community. We should, let the people know about their rights more. And so it got me going. And I really am happy that Lydia connected me to Matahari, and I got to meet all of you great people. And if I may add, I'm in the process of learning about leadership and management. So most of the time I don't use like the professional wordings. So I'm in the process of learning all that. Yeah.
That's amazing, Juliet. That's a really good story. I love that. So glad that Matahari was the place that you kind of restarted your leadership in the US. And it sounds like the two things that were really important for you was the ability to make an impact on the world, like a lot like what Ruth said. And also I feel like I heard you say that you learned to kind of surprise yourself with your capacity to lead. And I definitely, love that idea. I see Clau with their hand up and Barbara. So let's do Clau first and then Barbara.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. Yes, I'm Claudia. People call me Clau to make it short. First, I just want to say thank you so much for doing this. I was missing Matahari like crazy. Like I miss my lover, and I've been out of the country for a while too, for personal reasons. But I just came back, and I'm just happy that we will be able to meet again, even online, because Matahari is my family. And it's been my family for so many years. I don't even know how many years. I don't count them anymore. But oh, Ruth, I love you, Angela. Oh, I see you guys hard. I miss you all. I miss to see your smiles and hug you. So thank you. And to answer the question, to what was the team that I really love. I've been in so many teams since I was 5 years old, but to came to USA 14 years ago and being able to meet these wonderful people in Matahari through the years, and being part of, I will say, legally team that I was in, like I was in a leaders team, and I love it and I enjoy it, and I was able to talk and share and listen, and it was just amazing. I just remember those national, international days that we have, and it's just like how much impact we make to communities in Boston and all around in Massachusetts when we have those big events. And recently, I would say recently for the last 3-4 years, I was really, really involved and really loving it, enjoying the au pair committee, because au pairs are being kind of on the side, even for our alliance. And this is the hard work that I've been doing even in my community. When we have Cambridge committee, that was an amazing committee. Some of you that are in this meeting came to Cambridge, and we just met at MIT, and it was just like so much impact, even inviting people, politicians in Cambridge to support us. We pass bills. So being part of that and make changes to help us support domestic workers, it was a really the word is like powerful impact, but at the same time loving and caring for each other. So I'm just happy and grateful for meeting you again. I was talking to Angela, and I was telling her like, yes, I'm happy. I don't know how many hours I'll be able to go to Milk Street, but I'll be there because I want to see you. As Matahari, I think Matahari's nickname is just a place that it feels like home. It's a family, and we hug each other Yes, Angela, I hug you. Sorry, I'm not dressed up properly right now. I get out of the shower, but I'll see you guys in 2 minutes. Nice to see you all. Thank you.
Yeah, nice to see you as well, Clau. No rush, take your time. And I think Barbara has her hand up, and then I'm gonna transition us out. Go ahead, Barbara.
Yes, I was thinking, I have been involved in a lot of different groups already, coming up through my teenager years and my adult. I get talking from experience, I get to realize that when you involve in a group or organization, people go there to learn stuff. They go there to be more open to the public. You go in there to gain stuff. And for what I experienced is that the reason why that some people don't continue in certain organization is because that they're the what is supposed they're not getting nothing from out of it. That is my main reason. But from in Matahari, there's something there that connect you. And being in this group, there's something there that connect you, that you can learn something from, you could gather something from. Don't care what difficulties that this group is having. We always have something in our heart for this group. But as Angela and Ting was saying about the healing justice, we started this healing justice years ago, and it was just on a basic. But just a few of us gathering together, when we leave there, it brings a warmth to our soul. And this is what people always looking forward for, to achieve something or to get something or to feel the love when they assemble together with something. I am involved in a group in New York too, the old scholars of my old secondary school in New York. And that was just like how Matahari was here right now. We had things going, but as life goes on, everything get dropped, everybody get doing care, but they still hold on to that group. Once there's a group that is going on a different direction and people is still trying to hold on to it, there is something in that group that is attracting people to hold on to it. And we start off saying that if we have like 1,000 people in our group, what it would be like and what would we do and stuff. I do believe that if we had 1,000 people in our group and we come together more frequently and do things together, we would go from one level to the next. And right now, my belief is that because of the pandemic and always going on around us, the difficulties that's going on around us is what causing this group to be a bit off track, because everybody is just thinking about themselves right now, which I think they should think about themselves. Everybody just thinking about themselves right now, and they just they're trying to get things of themselves into action. We're not freely open as before. So some stuff in life is what is caused these things to happen. But I do feel that with everyone around us and we pushing in and doing stuff, things will go from one level to the next.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Barbara. And then I'm going to pass it to Marie, and Marie LaPlante, you're going to be my last comment.
Thank you, Lena. I'm just gonna close it out. I'm not gonna say a lot. I'll keep it short. I basically say I resonate with everybody about the teams that they've been in. I've had the pleasure of being in Matahari. I can't remember the date, but I have dipped my feet in quite a few teams, from Cambridge to JP, but my team was the Malden team. And I did like that team because it brought women together that would never have gotten together. It was a Nepalese main group and Haitian group. But I also met, what I really want to say is with Matahari, I have been able to meet a diverse group of women internationally and domestically to the US. And I've even met women from other countries because of the events that I've had the pleasure of attending due to Matahari. So this is what I have loved about this organization. And this is why I'm still a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's beautiful. Yeah, those were amazing thoughts. Thank you all for sharing those. I feel like I was surprised that so many of you named different versions of Matahari teams that you've been in as the like model, like the example for how teams should run. And that's great to hear. For me, I think what I heard is the best teams are consistent. They meet consistently. There's something you can rely on. The best teams are ones where you feel like you're making a positive impact on the world and for your community. I feel like I also heard something around being able to explore your leadership, you as an individual being able to take on responsibility and surprise yourself with the things that you're able to do, you know, speak in public, facilitate people, do all those things. And there was a last quality, which I thought was so unique and specific to Matahari, which is that there is just an unparalleled level of warmth here. Just a lot of love, a lot of warmth that makes everyone feel connected. So I think that there's a sense of connection, feels like a big part of what good teams should have. So that is fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing all your thoughts. Keep all of that in mind as we move to the next pieces of the agenda. I'm just gonna do a quick time check. So it is 11:21. We have a break scheduled at noon for lunch. We're gonna have an hour-long break for lunch. I just want to check in with the participants and the interpreters. Do we feel okay to keep going until noon, or do we need maybe like a 5-minute bio break?
It's supposed to be a 30-minute break, Lena.
For lunch? Okay, yes, sorry, my bad. What do folks think? Break, mini bio break, or shall we just keep going until noon? Interpreters, feel free to jump in here and let us know what you need.
Yeah.
I'm down to buy a break.
Bon, avant pause la m'tan remè parler de expérience moyen.
Before the break, she would like to quickly share one of her experiences on a team.
Sure, go ahead, Marie.
Okay. Et moi, ça m'te capable di, tout monde qui parle là, nous
What I can say, we all felt a common sense. We all were able to resonate with what was being said. And it's true. Someone just spoke and said that she left from Uganda to come to the US, and while she was in Uganda was working in an organization to help prevent the spread of AIDS. So I used to work with organizations. I used to work in an organization to help that used to help mother with children under the age of 5 years old to learn how to best take care of their children, especially considering how fragile children are in that period of their life. I felt great while I was doing that because a lot of those killed children that we were working with had already been sick, and we were trying to inform their mothers on ways to best take care of their children. And for me, this was a touching experience. And then when I came to the US, Matahari made me feel again that same motivation and spark that I felt when I was doing that work in Haiti. And there's so many things in Matahari that make me feel this way. I didn't know the aspect of knowing your rights and for others to know their rights as well. And in regards to the building of relationships between people, sometimes I felt like in other things and circles that I was in, especially related to like my professional endeavors, I always felt like there was kind of an end to or a limit to the relationships that we're able to build. But in this organization, I feel like we're able to better expand on these relationships, and we really are one. That's one of the reasons that if I can't come to one meeting of if I can't come to a whole meeting, or if I can't participate as much as I would like to. I have such a huge love for Matahari, and I always feel like I should be involved in participating in everything that the organization is doing. And I tell everybody that I know about Matahari and the work that we're doing, and I feel like everyone should know about it. And if ever there was someone who felt that they weren't able to build a connection or feeling that they were as connected, I would want to reach out to that person and reaffirm that they are really a part of us and our mission. What I love is this organization teaches you about what ways for you to grow and improve upon your life as an individual and as a member, and we do the same to the outwards community as well. And this balance of personal growth and the way that we are impacting the community is what keeps me motivated to be a part of Matahari. And I want to be a member of Matahari for the rest of my life. I have to stay a part of it. I hope that God allows me to stay a part of Matahari until the end of my life. When I want to be an old woman who's still a part of Matahari. And I can't wait for us to be able to pass the torches to the new generation of members to Matahari. And I can't wait to be able to do that as well. And that's another one of my motivations, to stay part of Matahari. And all of these are what has helped me to grow. And a lot of the knowledge that I have, a lot of the professional knowledge that I have and knowledge relating to our rights, it's Matahari that really gave me the space to grow and learn as well. And Matahari gave me that knowledge. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marie. I feel like I really resonated with what you said around balancing personal growth with positive impact on the community. That feels like a big theme in good teams. So I'm gonna pause us here. This has been a really rich discussion. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. And I also want to shout out Venus, who's taking notes for us right now. We captured a lot of what you said, so that's excellent stuff. But welcome back. I heard a lot about what good teams sound like both at Matahari and in other places as well, which is fantastic. I feel like where we left off is thinking about, I think it was Marie LaPlante that asked the question of like, where do leaders fit in this like teams model? Where do we go from here? And what has already been done at Matahari? Which is a fantastic question. That's exactly what we're aiming to answer today. I'm sure those of you who've been at Matahari for several years know that there have been several types of teams here. We've attempted to create neighborhood teams, campaign teams, and they've worked with like various degrees of success. And we've learned a lot from doing those teams models in the past. So because we have this memory, this institutional memory around what teams used to look like at Matahari, we thought it would be good to recap what we've learned from those times. But just to summarize, the goal here is to create teams that people belong to, that make them feel supported, cared for, where they have a role, where they can explore their leadership and have a positive impact on community. Some balance, as Marie Menard was saying, between personal growth and having an impact on the community that is positive. So I'm going to have Angela take you through one version of teams at Matahari, which was the infamous neighborhood teams. Angela, why don't you take it away?
Thank you, Lena. Okay, so Lena spoke about membership, transformation, commitments, and campaigns, and so on. And some of us even shared how we felt about being a part of a specific team, the joy we feel, the admiration, the dedication that we had. But we want to switch gears a little and talk about the neighborhood teams. And when I joined Matahari in 2014, there was the first neighborhood team that was in Charlestown. And Charlestown worked on the campaign, the Domestic Worker Bill of Rights campaign. And then from Charlestown, we had the Jamaica Plain team, which also worked on that campaign. And we worked on the nanny surveillance campaigns, the time and a half campaigns. We did all those surveys. And then there was the Newton team, the Cambridge team, the Malden team, and then the Back Bay team. I think Ruth was the captain of the Back Bay team. And there were many others. Some lasted, some didn't. Actually, one lasted 7 years. Can someone tell me what that one team was that lasted 7 years?
The JP one?
Mhm. Thank you, Ruth. And do we have members here from that JP team?
Yes.
Okay, so we have Barbara and who else?
That's all.
No, I think Marie LePlante. Marie was part of the JP team too. Right. And there are reasons why some teams never lasted. And I'm gonna ask you guys to share, maybe in the chat, or you can just raise your hand and share why some of the teams never lasted. You can talk it out. You can say, you can raise your hand. Why you think some of the teams never lasted?
I'll go with nobody mind. Some of the reason in my experience the teams haven't lasted. One of the main reason is location. Not having a set location. Participation, lack of participation. Is one of the reasons that I can remember why they haven't lasted. And purpose. I think if they don't have a purpose of why they're meeting or campaign or anything they're working on, then they're not going to last either because people have lost interest. I feel like JP lasted because JP had all of those three key things. That's why I feel like JP had lasted as long as they did. And because I have either from one form or another participated in at least 2 or 3 of those other teams, that's why I named the option, the stuff that I mentioned.
Thank you, Marie. Thank you. Anyone else wants to share? Those are key points. Those are really key points because Marie listed the pros and the cons of why those teams lasted and didn't last. Anyone else?
I agree with Marie that having a set location is good. Like I remember the South End team used to meet kind of like at various locations just because we didn't have a definite space. And some people, I guess, weren't used to going to the same place every time. So they thought it was very informal if we didn't have like a set space. And also lack of attendance. It was hard getting people to go. I think mainly because they didn't see the need. Like, what did we have to offer them, right? So perhaps they thought they were all set and they didn't really need to attend. So I guess maybe the South End wasn't the right location just because maybe people just were not interested.
Right. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I will definitely agree with Malik and Angela too. So some people were able to make it to the location, but also, you know, the weather, it just influenced also. transportation, if it wasn't a snowy day or not for me. Also the day that we planned the meeting. So if it was during the week, I remember that some of our Cambridge meetings were like after work on Fridays. So some people were not able to do it because of scheduling time of the day. But that was depending of, like the availability of people after doing it after work and no meeting on Saturday. So it's just those kind of cons and pros. The pros was that in Cambridge we did have a play, so it was a nice place to go, and we could just like even eat for free, and so that was really convenient and a very nice and comfortable, like physical environment. So that was helpful. But other than that, it was just the reason, but. And also because people moved from the city. So most of the Cambridge people we were meeting here in Cambridge, because we were like all neighbors, we were kind of all like located in Cambridge, kind of like convenient for all of us. So that was the reason why we just created, and yeah.
Thank you, Chloe. Thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else? Anyone else want to share? Because those are some very key points to why some teams lasted and some didn't.
For what I hear Claudia say, that means there was no full commitment, because in our Jamaica team, none of us was from Jamaica. Everybody come to that location, but we don't live around there. Now we're not so close around there. So I think maybe it was a lack. I never visit none of the groups, but I think it was a lack of commitment.
Yeah, commitment. So it was, as I'm hearing you guys say, it worked for some people because they lived in that area or they worked in that area. But the con also is that nannies transition to different families and oftentimes to different towns. And that made meeting up very challenging, right?
And also I think maybe the JP team lasted long. It was because there was maybe more than one person like leading it or heading the team, right? Maybe there were like 2 or 3 people that were committed to being like the leaders of that team. So having more than one person being in charge of it, I think it
was evolved.
I'm sorry, Barbara, what did you say?
I said everybody was involved.
That's right. Yeah. So everybody had like a sense of like responsibility for that team, as opposed to only one person in charge of everything. So that leads to burnout, I think, as Lena was saying earlier.
Yes, totally, Ruth, totally. Because at the JP team, there was a captain and there was a co-captain. But then some of the teams, they had a person who is responsible for that team. I remember, Ruth, correct me if I'm wrong, you were in charge of the Bat Bay team, right?
I was, and I was mainly like doing it by myself.
Exactly.
Julia would help, but not, she had other things to do. And yeah. And sometimes even doing the interpretation as well as leading the team. So, it was hard.
So interpretation was a problem.
Yes, because if there were no interpreters available, then I had to do the interpreting at the same consecutive interpreting, and that led to other people being bored that didn't speak Spanish and that type of thing.
So exactly. And for the JP team, I remember we never had interpreters like in-person interpreters. It would fall on the staff, the bilingual staff, to do the interpretation. Correct me if I'm wrong, Barbara or Marie LaPlante.
I have to agree with you, Angela, on this, because in my experience, the molding team did lack an interpreter, because as I mentioned before, that team has 2 different languages in it. We did have members that were willing to help out, but that is a key. I think the plus side on the JP team I may be wrong in saying this, is that you guys are mostly English. You do have some Spanish, but in my experience in the meetings I've attended, I feel like you were majority English and you had some other languages. So that kind of made a difference. But the other teams that we're talking about from Cambridge to Malden, I never met Back Bay. I don't know Newton, but I know those teams did need majority
So
interpretation.
you feel
My opinion.
Right.
From it.
How much, Angela, how much members was in the Jamaica team?
About 15, and then it dwindled down a little.
About two members. When you had about 3 members, me, you, and Hasan, that speak English. I couldn't speak Spanish. All the rest was Spanish.
Yes, but then the interpretation, it fell on the staff or untrained members and leaders to assist in those meetings, because we couldn't find interpreters to come to some of these in person. So the interpretation was an issue, right? And what else? What would you say about well, we talk about the meeting in person where persons are the scheduling, but do you think that if we were to organize differently, how would that look? Well, how would you think we would organize if we organize by languages? How you think that would fare out if we were to say use that model of not organizing by teams or campaigns, but by languages?
I don't know if that would be a good idea.
Okay.
That's like separating. I don't know if that would be a good idea.
Okay.
Yeah, we need a mixture. We need a mixture to be more healthier. We need to learn. They need to learn from us, and we need to learn from them.
So I'm gonna take us to a slightly different location, just because we're kind of quickly running up on lunchtime, and I want to respect everyone's time. The second, look, Angela kind of briefly touched on it. The second model that we had once used was a campaigns team model. I want to explore the language team's idea, but I'd love to just kind of recap what campaigns team looked like as well at Matahari before we break for lunch. So I was an organizer during this era of Matahari. That's when I came in. I never experienced neighborhood teams. I think, Lau, that was true for you as well. I'm wondering if folks could say more about, like, if there were leaders here or organizers here who were here during that time, about what that experience was like. I remember the committees where we had a committee around wage theft that we called Ow Ow, Our Work, Our Worth. And we also had a One Fair Wage committee, which was a committee to campaign on for domestic or for restaurant workers to get the fair minimum wage. I believe there were other campaigns as well. Any other folks want to say something about that?
I think there was that campaign during COVID to get like people the vaccine sooner, something like that. We even wrote like letters to the governor. Yeah, there was like a health
Vaccines
team campaign. Yeah.
That was definitely one. Vaccine access. And I believe that campaign was successful and it was able to get early vaccine access for house cleaners and certain domestic workers. Any other campaigns? Clau, I know you were deeply involved in the au pair committee and their campaigns.
Yeah, well, we did a lot of rights for au pairs. We were working with the Domestic Workers Alliance, doing a lot of work, passing bills, here, Washington, just doing a lot of training, but there was a lot of like, I was just focusing like peers mostly, but they were like, we were nationally also working, like mostly which is knowing your rights and recruiting au pairs, knowing that it's really hard to being able to like recruiting them because they're so scared. But that was something that we were doing also in Cambridge, where the people were meeting in Cambridge too, supporting au pairs, and committee when we were meeting also. But yeah, that was something that we used to do also here in Cambridge.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for naming that. So there were several campaigns. I think there were like pros and cons to this model of having these teams. Any folks want to say what they liked about this era in Matahari and what maybe was actually kind of difficult about working in these teams? Any thoughts here?
She'd like to know if she can participate.
Yeah, of course. Go ahead, Olga.
Again, hello everyone, it's Olga. One thing that I did want to share concerning this era, we can say that in this moment, we can feel that Matahari has changed its structure. There was an interaction in which you could feel that the community was really our members, but also the community at large. And when we felt like we didn't have enough people by our side, we would go and find people. But we definitely placed an emphasis and a focus on our existing members at the time as well. One of the campaigns that really stood out to me, even though I've participated in different campaigns and different teams, one thing that really marked me was an interaction at the time. There was really, you really felt like there was such an importance for members to know their rights. And we know there's been changes within the last administrations, especially under the Trump administration. Members needed to know about their rights in light of these changes in presidential administrations. But we never forgot our central mission and our objectives. And we never stood, we're distracted by our main goal to end some of these injustices that are occurring in these different domains of work. It's relating to the needs that we identified, that we ended up creating some campaigns to address some of the needs that were out in the communities. We really listened to a lot of the input of our members to identify some of these big needs within our community. So for the wage theft campaign, we really took the time to listen to the people. And then again, for the COVID vaccine issue, a lot of these people were people who also were undocumented, who were working and who were ineligible for unemployment or other benefits. Matahari definitely focused on the needs of these specific types of people who needed additional support.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only thing that could be a negative is when we do split ourselves up to be in a lot of different groups, is that it's tough for these different groups to interact with each other.
Yes.
So sometimes we did have these opportunities for like cross visits among groups, but there was still kind of an isolation of each group to focus on their campaigns and their missions. But I do think that if we had more interaction, even for some of the groups that might have been feeling a little defeated, they could have found inspiration from some of these groups that were really driven and pushing and active as well. And that could be a benefit of more interaction. And I think too, some of the groups were lacking in clarity as to how to move around the spaces that they were in as well, where cross collaboration could help to solve those problems. I don't want to speak too much, but I think that's something that we could that we can bypass, and as we change our model of organization, as you showed in the models, when we move towards that team model, there's that exchange between members, between leaders, and between organizers that allows us to be able to grow all together and come to action all together.
Yep.
If one delegation is in need of a little additional support, they're able to reach out to other teams to be able to find that support and clarity. I don't want to speak too much, but I do want to say one last thing. The groups, a lot of the times, have the same needs, the same motivations, and the same desire to solve these problems. But sometimes if we do onboard people who may not know about what they need, or who might not know about the intricacies of the issue that they're tackling, that too within the group might make a lack of synergy. So if we're able to better communicate within ourselves and amongst ourselves as well, people can find themselves with more clarity and direction if they feel like they might be lacking it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really thoughtful, Olga. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like, to boil down what you said, I feel like I heard you say that it was isolation was a big problem in that time and in that era of Matahari, which I definitely felt as an organizer, and I think all the staff really felt during that time. You know, Lau and I came on board at the same time, but we very rarely worked together, which was so interesting because our campaigns were separate. So there was really no collaboration, as Olga was saying, and each campaign had its own needs. So it was actually very difficult to coordinate and create collaborative moments across these campaigns. Other folks want to name other issues or other, you know, pros of this time in Matahari?
When we worked on the campaign, the time and a half campaign, we surveyed over 350 nannies in and around Greater Boston. So people came into Matahari through that campaign, through one of those campaigns. So even the surveillance camera campaign, persons called because they read the article, or we did outreach and we spoke about those campaigns. So we members were brought into the organization through many campaigns. Even the All Work Our Worth campaign, it brought in Zoe, it brought in Ivy, it brought in so many of our leaders that we have now.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. I think that was true. Campaigns, there is the pro of doing any campaign, you know, in this model or not, is that it's an easy way to engage members because people have a direct self-interest that they're fighting for within the organization, whether it's higher wages or reclaiming their wages that were stolen from them, or vaccine access. There's like a direct interest that everybody has that they're fighting for, which is great. And it's very easy to engage members. The con of this model within Matahari was that people, lots of new members were engaged, but it was actually very difficult to get folks into leadership. They would come fight for wage theft cases or participate in certain campaigns, and then sort of drop off and not be as involved in other parts of Matahari, because it was really hard for them to engage and build relationships outside of the campaign. Hannah, I see your hand. Go ahead.
Yes, I would like to mention that when I started with Matahari, it was an immigration campaign, and I think most of the 70% of the domestic workers are undocumented. And I think Matahari has forgot about immigration. And I think that's a very important point that we should just recap, and we should just start to input into this new model. And I think what happened on that campaign that didn't succeed is because lack of interpretation, lack of support from the staff, and also lack of enough information that Matahari actually teach the community about the rights about people being undocumented. Not a lot of people know about this still now on, and I think and this new era is something that we should be talk about. It's it's a big number of immigrants coming into the U.S. now, and they don't know anything. And I think we already have an organization where we can support them, and we can start working on that. And I think I support what Olga said, but I do remember when I started it, I knew a lot of nannies, they joined Matahari because they were undocumented. And the reason that they left is because Matahari forgot to work on those campaigns.
Any other thoughts? Cool. Yeah, so these were, just to recap what we said about campaigns, these were some of the pros, which is that it was issue specific, extremely focused on the work that it was doing. I'll say about this time that we were actually very successful during this time on the campaigns that we worked on. So in Ao, we recovered, what was it, Lau? Something like $100,000 in wages that were stolen from workers. You know, some of those folks are here today. It was also very easy to engage new members through campaigns because they were able to like work on the things that directly impacted their lives. Some cons of it is that each group was very isolated. It was really hard to get collaboration going across the spaces. If you didn't work on a campaign, for example, if you weren't a restaurant worker who worked on one fair wage, or if you weren't somebody who had an active wage theft case, it was actually very difficult to get involved in the campaigns and feel like you knew what was happening. So it was really hard for new members and old leaders to have relationships. Also very difficult to get people into leadership of the organization. Lots of folks came in, took leadership on the campaign, but then had a difficult time feeling like Matahari was their political home long-term. And then again, interpretation still remains an issue in this model. We went fully virtual during this time. We really practiced multilingual justice online through Zoom and refined our practice, which was excellent. But it still remains very difficult to get interpreters in all the languages we organize in. You'll notice we have members and leaders who are Nepali speakers, who are Portuguese speakers, who are Tagalog speakers. It is actually very challenging to get interpreters in all 5 languages and coordinate all the work that needs to happen in Matahari in all 5 languages. So interpretation still remains a giant issue. Any other thoughts on either neighborhood teams or campaigns team?
For the neighborhood teams, Lena, I want to share that when we decided to close, well, Matahari, the staff, I was a member then, decided to close some of the neighborhood teams because it was really burdensome on some of the staff, not having interpreters, and it was like a cultural isolation for some people. And we decided, the staff decided to close some of the neighborhood teams because they weren't working, but some members wanted to keep one team, and that was the JP team. And other members from other team wanted to collaborate with the JP team as well, because they saw the strength of that JP team. And the other teams were like very weak. So they wanted the neighborhood teams, but they couldn't sustain it. The leader or the captain of the team could not sustain that team. So it was a burden on the staff. Just to touch on some of the points that Anna made. Immigration was a factor for Matahari and still is. We've done a lot of Know Your Rights trainings, but we've gone through a lot of transformation in Matahari. But we're not, the talk, Know Your Rights training isn't dead. All we're gonna do is regroup and come back with our other trainings that we used to have. We will have them. It's just that we've gone through transformations and transitions. And as any organization, you regroup and you come back. Thank you.
Definitely. Thanks for naming that, Angela. Something I do want to uplift of what Angela said, all of those were excellent points, was that these models were intentionally sunsetted, right? There was a moment where people realized that it was actually quite difficult to do neighborhood teams, and folks were brought together to transition. We realized at a certain point that campaigns team was actually very difficult and hard to get unity across the board. And we're, regrouping at this exact moment to figure out what would be the next possibility for Matahari that would take us to the next level and challenge some of these issues that have surfaced over the past years. So I appreciate the intentionality, and I hope that everyone's excited to kind of go through this process together. Olga, I see your hand. Go ahead.
D'accord. Ça que m'ta dit, yon nan bagay ki te très positif tout.
One thing that was extremely positive, at any moment where we had a campaign, Matahari really made a point to highlight it and made a point to make sure that all the leaders were participating. The committees that were in place, we made sure that there was always an intervention being made, especially when we started to enter into the pandemic. We had to find ways to make sure that we could get better results, and that was partially due to us having come together and working together. We found a way for all of us to be able to still participate actively and consistently, and even for members that weren't able to come to all the meetings, they still were able to be involved in the process of making decisions for the organization, which brought a lot of results for us. We understand that in this moment, we can say that Matahari always listens to the needs of our members. But we can also, the more that we have members, we also find a way to better think through all of the decisions that we make and better reflect on them. A lot of our members are actively living or have lived through the problems that they're addressing, or their communities are going through those problems. If we find only a solution for one member, we won't find the solutions that we need, but rather meeting as a group and as a collective, engaging the needs and opinions of each member. That's how we really find impactful results and solutions to our problems. we consult each other. Sometimes we consult other entities as well. For example, legal clinics. But one thing I would like to add that I think is fundamental for us to avoid making missteps. And I think it's very important for us to take a step back and to really identify our key elements, our key actions, our key needs, and our priorities, and find what is fundamental to us. So we were talking about, the yearly training for the nannies. We see the benefits of sitting down with our members, and in doing so, we're better able to orient ourselves within this process. So then from there, we were able to transition to restaurant workers as well. The degree of empowerment that we're able to then provide makes it that we can't just be doing smaller things, small events, and we can just say women workers, but we do also have our limits. Because if we're talking about Matahari today, there's no small employer, there's no big employers. A long time ago, we didn't even consider nannies as being a profession. But now if there's a Bill of Rights, it's because we really sat down and talked to the community. We always focused on the employees that had the most needs and who were also the most mistreated. But now, we can't forget, as someone said before, we will always make the community remember that they have rights. In the same way that we have trainings on professional development, on career development, those are actions that I think we should still focus on, trainings for our staff, because if someone isn't trained, then we can't get the level of participation from them that we need. And also, what action are we able to then engage in the community for us to always yield the results that we hope to see within our communities, and that they align with the goals that we have already set for ourselves. We love Matahari, and we're focused is because we all have needs and our community has needs. There will always be new immigrants, and we can't not train them and inform them of their rights. And we should continue to collaborate with other organizations who are in the same field of work as us as well. So that we don't duplicate things that we've done in the past and duplicate other services that are being provided, because we already know what we can do. We already know what our partners are doing, but it's how can we go above and beyond in our own endeavors.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Olga. I'm going to have Marie LaPlante jump in here, and then I'm going to start transitioning us. Go ahead, Marie.
What I want to say is, from listening to what everybody has to say about the campaigns, I didn't participate in any of the big campaigns, or maybe I did participate, not in the leadership capacity. But what I want to say about the strength of Matahari is, I think the members and the leaders have always been able to come to the staff and the leaders about any type of need or some type of campaign they want them to engage in or start. So I don't think that's going to change, and any transformation that you guys are going to put towards going forward. I just feel like there will always be some type of campaign that's lacking or did not get off the ground, because some of the issues that have been brought up and everything that everybody has says is some of them are complex. Some of them are so complex that I believe Matahari has worked on them on an individual basis with the person that comes to them with those needs. So I think that's the reason some of these issues have not seemed like Matahari is giving them the kind of attention that I think the leaders felt like they deserve. But I think we know that the strength is that we've always brought the issues to the staff and the leaders, and then they take those on and talk to those people that has those needs. So I foresee asking the staff, how do they fit those in the new transformation that they're changing with the new model that they have coming forward?
Yeah, thank you for naming that, Maria. I think that's like a really great point. Yeah, campaigns are an interesting model because there's always like a balance between what the community has energy to do and what's possible to do politically. And that balance is what campaigns model was kind of always struggling with, right? Trying to figure out what is really possible to do in Matahari and in the world, and what do people have energy to do, and what's going to bring energy to Matahari. So always an issue. I do want to refine our thinking and our conversation a little bit. I think we've like wandered away from the point a tiny bit, in the sense that Matahari is always going to do campaigns. There's no model at Matahari that does not include campaigns. That's like a core piece of our theory of change, whether it's labor rights or immigration rights or domestic workers or nannies or restaurant workers. Fighting for political change is a core part of our identity that's never going to go away. That's like who we are in the world, you know? So I want to just note that when I say campaign teams, what I'm actually referring to is a structure within Matahari where people are organized and have relationships to each other based off of campaigns, what campaigns they're participating in. Neighborhood teams also did campaigns, right? But the campaigns were based on where they lived or where they worked. So if you were in Newton, you worked on campaigns around Newton. If you were in JP, you worked on campaigns that were JP related or came from the JP team, right? So there's never been a model at Matahari in the last 10 years at least that did not include campaigns. And we are not suggesting that we move away from that. We are 100% going towards that. The question is, how can we structure our organization so that we have the right relationships to each other so that we can win a campaign, that we can take it home and get things for domestic workers like labor rights, like immigration. And that's the question we're here to answer today. How do we organize ourselves so that we can fight hard and we can fight with 1,000 members and not just the 30 of us, you know? So I'm going to pause here. I'm going to leave you with that question. We're coming up on 2:30, which is lunchtime. I want to give the interpreters a break. I want to give all of us a break to just kind of absorb what we just heard. So we started off with this central question, right? What would we do if 1,000 people showed up tomorrow and wanted to be a member of Matahari? And this is kind of like the dream scenario, you know, people are beating down the doors, being like, Matahari is so great. I want to be a member. How do I get started? We reviewed our mission, what we're really here to do in this world, which is end the exploitation of women and femme workers, especially those in domestic and restaurant work. We reviewed these 3 pillars of Matahari, right? That organizers are not enough, and members are not enough, that the leaders are really the key. But how do we get members to be in a leadership position and not just in a passive participant, I showed up kind of position? We talked a little bit about identifying the tools and the support that people really need to get there, right? What an organizer's job is and what a leader's job is in that journey of getting a member to be a leader. And we talked about the fact that there are actually thousands of women workers out there. You know, in Massachusetts, where we do our work, there's thousands of domestic workers and restaurant workers and other industries that are dominated by women who are waiting to be organized, but probably have not heard us and received a thoughtful pitch from us. So how do we engage them, and how do we make them feel like they're meaningfully involved in Matahari and could potentially one day be a leader? So we discussed these two models, right? Which is the single organizer model, where one person's at the center, they're trying to do the most with as many people as possible, but are probably going to struggle a bit given the sheer intensity and size of their role. We talked a little bit about the teams model being an alternative to that. And Marie, I think, called it the co-op model, which I think is exactly right. And talked about how we need to go from a single organizer leader model to a co-op model. This is a huge transformation for us, in part because we have tried teams before. And folks have named all the teams in Matahari that worked really well for them. Also some that, were great for a time, but ended up not working out. And named, pros and cons of being part of those models. Neighborhood teams was one, campaigns teams were another. And we kind of stopped there because those were the two big models that Matahari has tried. Some of the challenges that we named were that both of these models actually required a high need for interpreters and organizers. You will notice that even the most low-key meeting in Matahari requires 3 organizing staff, and if not more, and usually at minimum 4 interpreters, if not more. When we do meetings with our full leadership, it really requires 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 interpreters and 5 organizing staff. And that's just your regular old leaders meetings, or any sort of committee meeting in Matahari requires that level of effort. So for that reason, our ability to do more with what we have is very limited. The other challenge we named is that despite having these really rich multilingual spaces where people of different backgrounds can come together, people still feel really isolated and don't feel like they have relationships with anyone besides an organizer, or anyone besides like their immediate 2 or 3 people. It's hard to build relationships across spaces where you need several interpreters and several organizing staff to be there. We named several challenges around, how we decide to do what we do, what programming we choose, what organizing campaigns we choose, and those are all valid. These models are not bad or inherently good. It's just they all struggled from the same issue, which was that they ended up becoming less of a teams model and more of a dot model, a single organizer model. So we have a proposal for you today. Something that we've been kind of grappling with in the organization is, how do we get these members back in the door? And when they get here, where do we put them so that they have relationships, they feel connected to the organization, and they feel like they can take on roles and responsibilities in a way that would take them to leadership in the future. Can everyone see this slide? Hit me with a thumbs up. Thank you, appreciate it. So this is the proposal. I think Angela mentioned it earlier. We've been thinking about calling it language teams because that is what it adds into what we currently have. So you'll notice that there is the center yellow piece, which is the leaders meeting, which is what we currently have as a monthly space for all of us to meet, all of you. That would continue to stay and would be more of like a political education space where we talk about, how do we get new members in the door? What's working for members? What types of trainings and know your rights and NMOs are they in need of? What are things that we could be providing that would be thoughtful for our membership? These are spaces for you to really engage your role as a leader to engage members. You'll see that there's an arrow going up and to the left, pointing towards the steering committee. There are folks from the steering committee here today. Anna is one of them. I think Lydia might be on here as well, and Ivy. Angela and I are both on the steering committee. This is a group of people who are governing Matahari's financial decisions and hiring decisions. So that's where all of that lives. And that was what's new in this model is that we have now 2 spaces that are what I call language teams and campaigns team. So a campaigns team is just where Matahari decides on like what issues are we going to work on, whether it be wage theft, whether it be cooperatives for nannies, whether it be immigration, driver's licenses, whether it be whatever we want to work on, it kind of lives in this body of Matahari. It will continue to be a multilingual space, as will the leaders meeting and the steering committee meeting. So these are places where we continue to kind of build relationships across our different language groups and ethnicities. And we do our best to model the best of Matahari, which is that like multilingual justice across immigrant communities. Here. What's sort of new about the space is that it adds language teams to the current setup. So we would begin with 3. These are the places where we have the most members currently and the most leaders currently, which is English-speaking leaders, Haitian Creole-speaking leaders, and Spanish-speaking leaders. These spaces would be newer in the sense that they would be monolingual. Only one language is spoken in each of those spaces. What it would give us is the ability to get members in the door and have them be active participants and active role takers without having to rely too much on having, you know, tons of interpreters and tech and Zoom and Relay and devices and all those things that would require several organizers to be at every meet. So that is the proposal. That's one idea that we're thinking of, could be a place to address some of the challenges that we've seen in our past neighborhood teams, and continue to get members back in the door and get them into leadership positions. So I'm going to pause here. I would love if we could break out into breakout rooms, which I think Laura is setting up right now. Angela is going to facilitate one of the do we have 2 breakout rooms, Lau?
We're going to have both an English one, a Spanish one, and then Haitian Creole will stay in the main room.
Great. So I will have Angela stay or go with the English and Spanish team to facilitate, and Lau, if you could go with her and support in facilitating, that would be great. And then Juliana and Venus, you're going to stay with me in the Haitian Creole team and do our discussion and reflection on this proposal in the main room. So let's take a second to break out.
Excellent. So in just a second, you're going to get an invitation to go into one of the 2 breakout rooms. The first breakout room is going to be the English language team. And then the second breakout room is going to be a Spanish language team. And Lena, in the chat, could you put the question that you would like us to think through?
Yes, absolutely. So these are the questions, and you know, Angela will facilitate you through these, and I will as well. What are your thoughts on this idea? Do you feel generally positive or generally negative? So think through like, what are the pros? What are the cons? And where do you feel like you need more information to feel good?
Excellent.
So I'm going to put that in the chat. And I'll invite all of you to join this breakout group and share your thoughts.
Hola. Ok. Vamos a ver. ¿Cómo estamos? ¿Qué piensan de la sesión?
Hola.
Hola, Zoe. Hey, Angela.
I think the wrong team.
You sure are. Okay. All right. ¿Qué pensamos de la propuesta?
Lau, ¿puedes repetir la pregunta o la propuesta para que estemos todos, que no está en el chat del grupo?
De una, de una.
Gracias.
La pregunta básicamente es reacciones a la propuesta que se acaba de dar de los equipos o la separación de los equipos por lenguaje. Entonces, hacer como una lluvia de ideas de los pros, de los contras, de que básicamente solamente dar nuestro como feedback. Reacciones iniciales.
Bueno, yo voy a empezar, voy a decir algo. Yo pienso que separar por grupo está perfecto, porque así pues nunca va a haber, me imagino, yo entiendo, va a haber ningún tipo de atraso, muchas veces que en el lenguaje, lo de la interpretación y todas esas cosas. Yo entiendo que eso se puede hacer en con cierta, ¿cómo se llama? En ciertas reuniones, porque siempre es bueno ver a las otras personas que aunque no hablen nuestro idioma, pero tenemos la interpretación, podemos escuchar las cosas de las personas, pues tú sabes, lo que ellos piensan, es lo que yo pienso.
Ok, gracias, Zoe. No sé qué piensa, no sé, yo sé que también Ana tenías un pensamiento, Ruth, estoy curiosa de lo que crees tú también.
Ok, yo estoy de acuerdo con Zoe que en ciertas ocasiones sí sería como beneficial, 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 se olvidó la palabra.
Está bien.
Como cuando agarramos a nuevos miembros, digamos, si hay como muchos que hablan español y nada más como uno u otro que habla el otro idioma, entonces tendría sentido que, digamos, esa sesión fuera en español y así todo el mundo habla con confianza y se escuchan las voces de ellos y todo es como más íntimo. Y en otros, y cuando ya tengamos una sesión más grande donde todos estamos involucrados, pues ya que sea multilingüal, así miramos otras caras y sabemos que somos una organización más grande, no nada más somos divididos por idioma.
Una de las cosas que estoy escuchando es de que crea un poquito más de intimidad y también crea más como espacios para que entre nosotros tengamos como más confianza. Y lo chévere es de que, o lo chévere también sería de que cuando entremos a espacios que son mucho más grandes, estos grupos más pequeños también van a ser más fuertes.
Sí, esto como beneficiaría más, digamos, como a personas que no hablan, digamos, nada de inglés. A veces ellos se sienten intimidados si la conversación es en inglés y si están escuchando en español, pero no se sienten muy cómodos hablando. Pero si la conversación se está llevando a cabo en español, entonces ellos se sienten más en confianza.
Ok, bien. Ivy, ¿tú qué piensas?
Sí, yo pienso que la verdad es de que sí se siente uno un poco más como diferente, que incluso ahí yo pues estoy en el trabajo ahora, pero he estado escuchando y todo y me da hasta como esa cosita que quiero hablar, ¿verdad? De saber que estoy en el grupo en español, ¿verdad? Entonces sí es como una más confianza de poder uno dirigir con sus propias palabras y su propio idioma, ¿verdad? porque a veces sí hay cosas en inglés que es un poquito difícil entenderlas o comprender todo el contexto de lo que estamos hablando, aunque haya una buena traducción, ¿verdad? Pero sí, sí es muy, pienso que es muy importante, ¿verdad? La, como la división de estos grupos en ciertas áreas cuando necesitamos como un poquito más de comprensión de ciertas cosas.
Ujú. Excelente. Ana, Clau, ¿qué piensan ustedes? Y después también me gustaría escuchar de pronto los contras.
Sí, bueno, creo que es buena idea, como dicen, ¿verdad? Las demás, de que estemos compartiendo un mismo lenguaje, también así nos ahorraríamos lo que es el gasto de interpretación eh, y sería como un pro para la organización, ¿verdad? Y para sus miembros que son que hablamos español. El contra es que creo que van a haber muchos miembros que se van a sentir como que estamos teniendo preferencia, número uno, se van a sentir excluidos, número dos, ya escuchamos a Bárbara en el principio, fue un no, y yo me pongo en el centro, porque a veces se me hace como que hay días que me levanto que quiero hablar inglés, otros días que me levanto que quiero hablar español. Entonces, creo que hay muchos miembros que somos así, o sea, entonces sentiría yo que estamos como dividiendo la organización por idioma y tal vez algunas personas van a ver mal esta acción, tal vez no van a sentir lo mismo que tal vez nosotras estamos expresando, que hablar en el idioma natal de uno, pues uno se siente más libre. Pero siempre en Matahari he tenido la oportunidad de tener intérpretes, pero como digo, ese sería el contra, pero el pro es que sería un ahorro para la organización porque se gasta mucho en interpretación. Y son puntos que a veces los miembros no miran, no saben, pero cuando estamos en comités organizadores, entonces nos damos cuenta del gasto y creo que sería un buen, podríamos tratarlo. Y claro, si tenemos eventos grandes donde no podemos dividirlos, tenemos que estar unos porque organizar es unión.
Sí,
Entonces las personas tal vez van a decir, bueno, si nos organizamos es unión, ¿por qué nos han dividido? O sea, esa pregunta siempre va a estar,
claro.
pero hay una buena posibilidad que miembros se sientan con más comodidad de hablar su idioma sin necesidad de tener un intérprete en intermedio.
Ujú. Sí, lo interesante de este modelo también sería de que por ejemplo, los entrenamientos de conoce tus derechos serían, o sea, se darían en estos espacios más pequeños, más íntimos, y después eventos como International Nanny Training Day o eventos como la asamblea de miembros o eventos programáticos que sean mucho más amplios serían entre toda la comunidad. Entonces, los espacios de estos equipos pequeños se darían con la misma frecuencia o ya eso dependería pues del grupo, con la misma frecuencia posiblemente de los neighborhood teams o sea semanal o por mínimo una vez al mes. Dale, Ana.
Qué bueno que mencionaste eso o sea, del nivel de atención y de que vengan miembros a reuniones. Puedo expresarte que en el pasado he sido la capitana de lo que es el desarrollo profesional y cuando yo organizaba los eventos de entrenamientos de CPR y tenía que dividirlos por idioma, siempre había problema porque las que hablaban inglés me decían, ¿por qué siempre las de español? O las de español me decían, ¿por qué las de napalí? Entonces siempre había un conflicto de quién iba a ser primero, quién iba a ser después, por qué más acá. pero a veces no entendemos que tal vez organizamos dependiendo del número de necesidad. Entonces, a veces tenía miembros que hablaban español, 50 personas que querían escoger el entrenamiento y quizás solo 10 en inglés. Entonces yo tenía que dar preferencia a las que tienen más, las que necesitaban más, pero nunca me dirigí a dar mucho al español o inglés. Siempre trataba de que si el inglés incorporar la de Napalí para que no se sintieran solas, pero como te digo, era un gasto por la interpretación. Entonces, eso sería pues lo más ideal, como tú dices, ya un evento de capacidad máxima donde estamos hablando de 100, 200 personas. Entonces, sí estoy de acuerdo que haya interpretación en todos los idiomas en los que hay miembros. Pero sí, vamos a hablar acerca de un entrenamiento donde tenemos la facilidad de poder tomar un número pequeño, sí sería bien dividirlo para darle que confianza y que ellos se sientan que estamos acogidos y que no estamos como con ese intermediario. Tú ves, a veces las personas se sienten como intimidadas cuando hay un intermediario, no se sabe, oh, ¿será que me interpretó todo lo que dije o no? Entonces, pues sí, me alegra que tú hayas mencionado esos puntos.
Claro. Antes de cerrar el espacio, porque nos tenemos que volver a integrar, me gustaría escuchar el punto de Clau.
Sí, yo creo que es súper importante que, pues que claro, si nuestra primera lengua es la que sea inglés, español, portugués, el que sea, pues es mucho más fácil y mucho más práctico poder compartir ideas en un lenguaje pues, nativo. Pero también creo que es importante que tengamos la oportunidad de, no sé si la palabra correcta es rotar, o tener la oportunidad de estar acompañando, apoyando a los otros lenguajes. Hablo específicamente en mi caso personal porque hay un tema, por ejemplo, que a mí me gusta en el equipo de JP y quiero apoyarlo y hablo inglés, también hablo portugués, estoy estudiando francés. Entonces, si tengo la facilidad de que los idiomas es algo que me gusta y que lo tengo y quiero seguir formalizando, yo quisiera decir que es importante la inclusión en vez de la exclusión por el idioma. Para mí es muy importante el tema de la inclusión, independientemente de la lengua. Entonces, eso es algo que quería compartir.
Claro, sí, y es muy buen punto. Vamos a hablar un poco.
All these things that we have to accomplish, we can't not do them. So this is why we're here today. And in the midst of all of the uncertainties that we have while we're trying to move on to this next step, one thing I do know is that we are here and we do need to be standing tall, and we are really at the heart of pushing Matahari in the direction that we need to get to. So even though we are still trying to figure a lot of things out, we do know where we stand as leaders. And again, I just want to say I really feel like a family. I really feel like I'm in a sisterhood when I'm with all of you, and we're defending what is good for us and for the community and the greater good. So thank you.
Thank you, Lena.
Everyone, please select your language from the interpretation group now that you're back. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope the breakout rooms felt like good processing space for this proposal. I would love to hear a little bit about what we said, what we sort of named as our concerns or the places where we feel excited for this idea. Maybe I could have someone from the English speaking team report back on what was like the general consensus or what were certain points that were raised.
Sure, I could do a quick summary. So the general consensus, I think, is we should go ahead and try out the language teams. A concern that came up was due to divisiveness. It could cause divisiveness within the group where people would feel left out, depending on how large individual teams are. And also another point would be that it would help the members in the individual language teams to be able to speak up more and get their points and concerns across, because when we meet as a larger team, it would reduce the need for interpretation back and forth, because we could have one person from that team just give a general, concerns as a group. And yeah, so those were the main concerns. I don't know if anyone else wants to bring up anything from our short group.
We just up now that we should have a try of it. A new try, it could be for better. So I think we all should have a new try of it.
Awesome. I love consensus. That's great. I really appreciate you highlighting that point around divisiveness. That was something the staff also named as a concern when we initially were brainstorming around this. That always happens in organizations when you divide by ethnicity or language or any sort of like identity group. The like opening for becoming divided is larger. But like as with all models for teams, it's sort of how you navigate like bringing people together, unity, that makes it a real organization, right? So full that we'll be able to do it, especially because we've been practicing multilingual justice for so long that I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon. Sorry. I'm going to switch to the Spanish speaking group. Does anyone from report back? And concerns? What are you thinking?
I was just saying at the end of our breaking room that I think it's really helpful for native speakers. My first language is Portuguese also, but I'm learning. So, and I want to learn because Malden members speak mostly French, just an example. So I think it's very important to me to be inclusive, like a very inclusive, I will say.
Could come on, we'd resort it. Let's see, pipe in.
I have experienced this in the past in Matahari when I always because I don't have nobody to speak English. I discriminated, and I have all that, people coming to me and tell me all these things. And at the end, for me, if I speak Spanish, of course, I will be more there's no members from here. There's nobody from the Spanish people here. So I have different forms. I try. It will be something new, and maybe that way we can engage more to new members.
I definitely hear you on that, Anna. I'm hearing is that people never want to be reduced to one part of their identity, for example, and they want like different kinds of people. I think that's why it was so important to us to have spaces like the leaders team that and the members assembly that are definitely lingual, so that there's basically there's their language team, there's multilingual spaces, they can kind of like pick and choose from options. I mean that language is the only thing that you're paying attention to. There's much more.
Sorry, I do remember that back on time, people that were interested in learning languages, Matahari or languages. So that's part of how I started because that was my very, very beginning, I'll say offer for Matahari when I start my classes. And that is something how I initiate, liking in more languages. And And I just want to bring this up because I do know that Matahari have the chance to offer those classes for people that were interested in taking any, classes that members were interested on. So I just bringing it out for.
Yeah, no, thanks for raising that. I remember that being brought up as well. Part of what we did in our research for this proposal is we interviewed Monique and Julia about things they had tried in the past, and they brought up language classes, and they also brought up the Movement Language Justice School, where people were training to be interpreters from community. And I'll say things were successful and her drugs. We were, language class. So what happened is we are to class so then training
I have one suggestion to make. If this is going to happen, if we're going to divide it by language, we're going to have a meeting at least every end of the month or every 2 months. Combination, the four group, the three language together. We're going to have some sort of general meeting for everybody. If this is going to happen, not going to cause conflict.
Yeah. That's what we were thinking about. The leaders meeting would be a space for, come together, align on the purpose of Matahari. That would be a space for leaders that would be multilingual. And then the campaign space would be a space for members and leaders that would be multilingual. Anyone could go to that space and we could work on campaigns together, and it would have a very unifying purpose where people can see how having a multilingual community is more powerful and more able to get their best interest across. So I'm with you, Barbara. I think that's exactly what we're proposing. Great. I'll pass it to either Olga or Marie or both to highlight some of the thoughts they had in the Haitian Creole speaking team. Marie, Olga, either of you want to share?
Yeah, Marie. Marie ou la? Allez, nona. Ma, fait adla.
Olga.
So, voilà. Li di sou te ka me partaje sa nou te di yo nan mouman sa nan tim pa nou an, nan group nou an.
Okay.
Marie, you want to share any of the thoughts you brought up in our team meeting?
Oui, moi c'est Marie, m'a présenté ça que nous t'ai parlé dans groupe
So we spoke about a few things in our group. We really shared our interpretations of the graphics on this new model of organizing ourselves with the language teams. Looking at that central team, which is like the leaders meetings, we see it as the group that can really style and our approach to all of the teams that we have. And that's the central place for us to identify. Like we said, the language is a problem. And the best way for us to integrate people, to get people together, and the best way we can orient them and the problems that they have is by having this new team.
Et nou te wè lot gen yon lot imaj ki groupe moun yo kote de langue espagnol et
So
créole.
splitting us up into the languages that we speak, Creole, English, and Spanish.
En un mot,
in one word.
nou wè se organisasyon se tout se nou ta kompare la kom tout moun yo et en gros sa imaj yo se ressources la et pou nou kapab wè ensemble.
This is a resource for us to see how we are going to be able to share meaningfully amongst ourselves to best accomplish our goals. To direct people, orient people, so that we don't lose them in the long run. And so that's basically what we talked about.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you so much, Marie. I feel like I'm sensing that people have their concerns and definitely can see a place where, you know, language teams might have some drawbacks, but that there is energy and excitement to try out this new model and shift us from the DOT model, the single organizer model, to a more robust teams model that's based around languages. Does that feel like the correct assessment? Do you feel like there is energy to move towards this? If you think it's a yes, hit me with a thumbs up or put it in the chat. Let me know. I'm seeing a thumbs up from Malika, from Minelva, from Lau. I'm seeing some applause from Ruth, a thumbs up. Anna, Barbara, I'm seeing thumbs up. Any other thumbs up? Seeing it from Angela, Marie LaPlante, Juliet, awesome. And I think we have a couple more folks. Is there anyone that's like, I have strong opposition to this and I'm gonna need more information? For sure. Zoe, I'm seeing your thumbs up. Thank you. Cool. So I think we have critical mass of consensus on let's pursue this idea and dig for more information. All this to say that we're just at the proposal state, right? Like we're not ready to kind of launch this full model change right now. You'll notice that not all of the leaders are here as well. So we still need to do some work to get everyone on the same page of understanding the proposal. And obviously we're going to follow up on this retreat and talk with you all one-on-one about what your ideas are and where, you know, if there are things that you didn't get a chance to express today, we can always talk about it one-on-one. The goal will be to kind of phase this in slowly so that we can all like walk the talk in a meaningful way and, you know, not put too much pressure and change on the organization too quickly. So I'm gonna pass it over to Lau to talk us through what exactly the plan will be to take us to the next phase of this.
Excellent. Thank you, Lena. Lena, could I have you put up on the screen the our year ahead? Thank you so much. All right, folks. So we have had a day of proposals, a day where we've gotten the opportunity to sort of see where we want to take Matahari into this new era. And for those of y'all that joined us at the holiday party, you know that one of the big themes for this year is that really it's a year of transformation for the organization. And as leaders who have, you know, some of you, most of you actually have renewed not just your membership to the organization, but really have also renewed a major commitment to the organization. by showing up at this leaders retreat and sort of like hearing about the trajectory that we want to be able to like to forge this new path for the organization. So I have a couple of really big questions, and I don't think that we're going to necessarily answer them today. But with this goal of trying to absorb new members into the organization, we also have to figure out not just the how we're going to do it, but what spaces we're going to put them in, right? So as leaders of Matahari, we'll be asking you to participate in some of these monthly and events. We'll definitely be incorporating into the next year some old traditions like International Nanny Training Day, as well as our members assembly. And we'll be incorporating and starting some new traditions like monthly phone banking events, as well as cultural events over the summer. And we're going to use all of the opportunities that are highlighted in this slide to be able to absorb new members into the organization. And that's not going to be an easy feat. However, we do have some spaces for you all so that we can help prepare you all for the absorption of all of these new members. One of the biggest things through this proposal that we want to do is that we want to shift our monthly leaders meetings into spaces that are more about learning new skills, facilitation, developing our own internal leadership skills. And as you heard Lena mention in the proposal, we want to shift our leaders meetings to be monthly community organizing spaces. And as you know, you're all familiar with the community fellow space. So we have the idea that we want to make our monthly leader spaces into more community fellow spaces within the organization, where again, we'll be able to hone in on some of these like outreach skills, facilitation skills, and really get us ready for when we begin to launch the new teams. As you know, we're also going to be having our 20th year anniversary party in March, and we're hoping at that space to be able to also invite new members that we're getting through our monthly phone banking. We want to be able to continue having folks involved by hosting our International Nanny Training Day. And we want to continue to keep folks involved in the organization and keep them warm until the big language team launch in the fall, by also hosting a series of events over the summer that folks can come through and get involved in and get excited about Matahari, learn about who we are, our mission, learn about our structure, and learn about sort of the ways in which we organize. And then at our members assembly, it'll be the opportunity for all of us to be able to get consensus about the kinds and get excited about the kinds of campaigns that we want to have, and like where we want to be able to also invest our energy into. And it'll also be the space where we launch these language teams that we will be working towards launching and like absorbing members over the next couple of months. So as you can see, we're gonna be busy. We're gonna be hella busy. And I know that there's like more conversations that we need to have in order to sort of like flesh this out. But we wanted to be able to present this calendar of like ideas as a proposal, because we want you all to be not just excited, but also committed to where Matahari is going, and know that there's like a plan to be able to like absorb all the new members through our membership drives and through the events that are coming. Good stuff. Are there any sort of like immediate reactions? Are there things on this calendar that you're all looking forward to and excited about? Let me hear it.
Just a little bit of reflection that when Matahari is going to have an event for restaurant workers. We have this new chapter, and I think we need to offer something for restaurant workers too. And otherwise, restaurant workers will know Matahari help them too.
Of course, my audio cut off a little bit, but I know that there was a comment around specifically how we'll be absorbing restaurant workers into Matahari. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so. For a lot of this, we know that our two membership, the folks that come in through sort of like different work streams would be domestic workers. And we've also, in the last couple of years, also put a focus through the OFW campaign on absorbing restaurant workers into the organization. And at the moment, one of the best places where we can absorb them is that the language teams will definitely be an inclusive space for both of these work areas to like be held. And I think that part of the work that we would want to be able to do in either a community fellow space or in a more like campaign centered space is try and figure out, like, have the conversations around what campaigns we would want to have. And that is still very much like up in the air. And I think that that's where part of like the conversations with the membership as well as the leaders sort of like come in. Does that answer your question, Anna? Right, good stuff. And any other reactions, any feedback, comments that we sort of like have about the proposal for the year ahead?
Yes, Lena. My concern would be like for, you know, old members and new members that's gonna come in. I think the question from a lot of them is gonna be, you know, what's new with Matahari? You know, what are they working on now opposed to a couple of years ago? So I think they're probably gonna come in wanting to or before they come, they're gonna want to know, like, what is it, you know, what's new, you know, apart from that Matahari was a part of the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights. Apart from that being the last bill that was passed, what new has popped up since we had like International Nanny Training Day? So I think like old members and probably new members are gonna want to know, you know, what's popping, what's happening, you know, what's gonna happen, you know, what new are we bringing to the table?
Yeah, I hear you. And I think that part of what I'm also going to invite all of us to sort of do is when we come, we're hoping that the community fellow space, which is now taking on the absorbing the monthly leader space that, you know, many of you have participate on. That's really going to be a space where we're going to be ironing some of these things out. And it also sounds like there has to be, like, we know that through the phone banking events, we're going to be inviting folks into some of our programming, like the 20th anniversary or International Nanny Training Day, or some of the cultural events that we want to be able to have. And what I'm also hearing you say, Malika, is that you want there to be you want there to be like, for the, not just the essence of like who Matahari has been, but like the essence of like where Matahari is going.
Yes.
To be able to be communicated and shared. And
Yes.
we're not going to be able to do that, honestly, without y'all. So that's why it is so important that you participate in these events, because, you know, as Lena mentioned, like, we're trying to really move away from the dot model and trying to create more of a snowflake model. And I'm looking at y'all to be my snowflakes.
Got you.
Yeah.
But rest assured, Malika, we are going to work on campaigns again. That is
Most
not
definitely. Most definitely.
going to do it. The goal really is to get people back in the door so we can start to surface what's important to them in this moment. Because I think that's changed since a year ago, since 2 years ago.
Yep. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Cool.
And I'm looking forward for the International Nanny Training Day. I think that can be a good kind of relaunch day for Matahari and to let people know that we're back. And just this week, somebody asked me, I don't know, Matahari is still doing CPR training. So just things like that, that people have known that we do, and that if they need it, they can just say, is Matahari still doing that? If we can get back to doing that, I think that would be great for the community to know that we're active.
Thanks, Ruth. Lau, do you want me to jump in with the next steps?
With the what?
With the next steps?
No, I was actually responding to Ruth, but realized that I was actually on mute as I was talking.
Oh, makes so much sense. Go ahead.
Still glitching on Zoom 2 years later. I was gonna say, Ruth, in response to your comment, that we're definitely excited to bring back some of the things that make Matahari who Matahari is, you know, like part of like the fabric and, you know, the traditions of the organization. And we're trying to also infuse some, you know, like new sazon into the traditions as well, because we really need to update them. And so like, even if we are bringing back some things that are like very known to the organization, it might mean that at least for this year, we sort of switch them up a little bit, because I think in part it's also a question around capacity. We're like trying to also build, you know, new leadership curriculum. We're trying to really create a new space for leaders that is not just on a quarterly or biannually level, but something that is like more of a monthly space. And what that means is that our resources as a staff are also being redistributed. So these events, like, as we're very excited to continue to like put them on, it just might look a little different, at least within the next year, or until we sort of like, you know, reshape the like the programming, if that makes sense.
Awesome. Before we let you go, we would be remiss if we didn't get some signups for the things that are coming up. First things first, membership renewal is live at Matahari. Y'all have heard us make this pitch a few times probably, but I think there's some new folks in the room. If you want to renew your membership, which if you want to continue being a leader, you definitely should, please go to this link and sign up for a membership. You will see that there are a couple options available for you there. One is the membership to Matahari, which is $30 annually. It comes with all the benefits that y'all know about, including like the community building events, trainings, political advocacy moments, all of that stuff. And it's a requirement for leadership, so definitely do that ASAP. And the second piece, if you want to be a dual member of both Matahari and NDWA, which is the National Domestic Workers Alliance, we are now offering that for the first time ever. That's $60 annually, and it also comes with enhanced benefits like health and dental and life insurance and things like that. So click on the button towards the right if you are interested in doing a membership with both of us.
The $60, sorry, Lena, I just want to add that the $60 is for both memberships, not just NDWA. It would be for Matahari and NDWA.
Exactly. Yeah, sorry, my bad. Second thing is the phone bank event, which is coming up real soon. Angela, can you give a brief overview of that?
Okay, so the phone banking event will be on February 15th from 6 to 9 at the CIC building on 50 Milk Street. And that will be for the 20th anniversary. And I'm hoping to have leaders there to call our call list of over 200 people that we're trying to get to attend our 20th anniversary. Anything else, Lena, I'm missing?
No, that's it. This will be our second phone bank. I know a few of you came to our first one, so that was fantastic. Definitely come to the second one as well. It was really great to get members back on the phone, and there was a lot of enthusiasm there.
We'll have food and good company.
And then the last very exciting piece is that Matahari's 20th anniversary celebration is scheduled. It's on March 8th, which also is International Women's Day. So we are partnering with Lamplighter Brewing Company, who is generous enough to give us the use of their beautiful, gorgeous space to celebrate this really huge moment in Matahari's life. And they're also launching a beer on our behalf. We get $1 from every single beer that they sell. So this was a big fundraising moment for Matahari as well. I know Lauda is working on an amazing program and are going to tap you in soon to participate on that day. But if you haven't already, you should definitely register to join that event. We have an Eventbrite up. If you're a member, the ticket is free. And if you're not a member, I think it's about $30, and that comes with some stuff, some benefits. And the proceeds go to Matahari. So you should definitely register for your membership first and then register for this. And then make plans to celebrate together on March 8th.
Lynette, what is the location of that event on the 8th?
Absolutely. It is Lamplighter Brewing Company in their Cambridge Crossing tap room, which is near Leechmere Tea Stop. It's on the Green Line.
I see. Okay.
Yep. And it's from 6 to 9.
Thank you.
It's like 2 blocks away from where the old Leechmere station used to be. And the new station is called Cambridge Crossing.
Oh, cool. Didn't know that.
Close to EF, I know. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Awesome. All righty, perfect. So thank you so much. If you need any help with registering membership or have questions about that, reach out to one of us, Lau, Juliana, Angela, me, to get some support. Thank you to our interpreters for doing this amazing job of interpreting for us today, and rotating with us as we went from in-person to virtual. We really appreciate you guys for doing that. And thank you so much to our brand new volunteer, Venus, who's a PhD student studying domestic workers. So great to have you here with us, and I hope this was a good experience. All right, I will pass it off to Juliana to close us out.
Thank you, Lena. Okay, everyone. So we know in Matahari, we are about action. We are moving forward. So I just wanted to, we want to end with bringing that energy into that space. As I see Angela, if you can all unmute, if you're comfortable doing so, come back onto the camera. We'll close out feeling the energy and power of our group as we move into these next steps. So, do you all know this one? When we fight,
win.
When we win. Fight,
we win.
When we fight,
we win.
I want to see your mouths moving in, even if you're on mute. When we fight,
we win.
Cuando luchamos,
ganamos.
Cuando luchamos,
ganamos.
I just took everyone off of the presentation.
We made it through.
Thank you so much, everybody. We're gonna hang out for a few minutes and play some music, but thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been incredible. Thanks for being here, making the time for this. You are the best. Have a fantastic day and stay warm.
Everyone, thank you, Sabina.
Thanks, Lena.
Thank
Thank
everyone.
you, everyone.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everyone.
teacher.
Bye,
Have a nice
everyone. It was so
day.
good to see your beautiful faces.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Angela.